So this is how it came about. So they were all in Jewish line. Why they were called Israel? That's the most important point. They were called Israel because Jacob, he is the father of, as they said, is a father of those 12 children, the 12 tribes. And those 12 tribes, it was called Israel. Israel, the prince of God. Why was called the prince of God? Because he had 12 princes. And those 12 tribes, or they were called princes. So at the time, they had to establish their tents, and they built that tent because they do not have land. It was said that Abraham did not even have land when he left Mesopotamia. He left Mesopotamia, went down to a place where he put his people and they were staying there. The place, it was said, it was not a very known place. It was a hidden place for him and his family. So Mesopotamia is in modern day Iraq today. They were not having land. So Moses taking them from Egypt. Where would they go? They were going, passing through the Red Sea, as was said in the Bible and also in the books of traditions, from the scriptural traditions, either from the Christians and the Jews or the Muslims. Then they were taking them away as they got to a place. It was said that they do not know. They were being wandering around until they were walking with God's direction. And they got to the place that is where it was called Philistine or Palestine at that time. So it was said that they met some people like the Amalekite, the Amalekite, the Amorites, and all that. People on the way. And they were all having strong and fierce armies. And they were not having, they were having the fear, how would they conquer these people with these tired men who coming from Egypt, who were Israelites? So God strengthened them and strengthened the armies. They were trained. When they were trained, Joshua was one of the leaders of the armies. Who were training them to make sure they fight those Amorites and the Amalekites and many of them. So, unfortunately for them, they had to conquer them and they get hold of those places and they began to fighting for years, about 20, 30 years. It was said Moses could not contain all that when he was going there, despite the grievances from the Israelites, saying we left a perfect place and coming to a place to have chaos. We cannot tolerate this. So they are objecting to Moses' viewpoint, saying that they've not even seen the God that Moses was preaching about. They will not believe God. Who is that God that Moses was talking about? Moses, out of anger, will go to the mountain to request to ask God for guidance. Sometimes he spent 30 days, 40 days on the Mount of Sinai. Then when he came back, he discovered that probably that when he came back from the mountain, he saw that Aaron was being suppressed and decided to worship a calf, golden calf. It was said that one of those who instigated them to worship this was the same person who accused Moses in Egypt. His name was Dathan. This is a long story and goes on. And they built a golden calf, worshiping them. Aaron was being helpless. So when Moses came back, he was angry. The anger, as fierceness as it was, decided to destroy those calves and restore them back to the worship of God. But yet there were some arrogant ones who decided to turn their back against him. And then in the Quran, in the Hadith, on the Hadith of the Muslims, we say it was Simr. Simr was one of those who opposed Moses' leadership. And that led all that due to the anger, Moses struck the rock, and the rock that Allah says to strike, the gush of water, did that out of anger, water came out, and Moses did not see the promised land. And they began to wander, continue to wander under the leadership of Joshua. It was said they moved on. It's not a long story. You see that when they were going, they could not get to a promised land. Even when they got to a place of Palestine, they stayed there for a while. They were still having problem with the people around there. To the extent they managed to get a hold of a particular place. It was said it was Jerusalem. Now, they lived there for a time due to the power of God vested on them, and God was protecting them. Despite they were wandering flocks, but God protected them. And when they were going, they faced more battles. Even the time of when Prophet Saul, as a prophet David came. David, which is Dawood in the Arabic, Dawood, he came, who was his father, the son of Jesse. It was said that David ruled due to he was a young boy who faced one of the Philistines, who was a giant, Goliath, and defeated him. It was said in the Arabic, it's called Jalut, defeated him, and then that ended the battle between them and the Philistines. And he reigned over them as the king. And then he reigned for some years. He had a son by the name of Solomon that continued, and all prophets from the same lineage continued. To the extent they were expecting the Messiah to come. It was said that when they were expecting the Messiah to come to restore them back to God, because they saw that they were having problems due to the fact that they could not maintain that propensity, that way of going towards God in terms of their divinity, in terms of their trustworthiness towards God. Some of them were involving themselves in worshiping of idols. Some of them were turning themselves to involving themselves with women, and they were doing a lot of things that to the extent God was angry with them, and God turned their back against them. And that led Nebuchadnezzar. It was said that Babylon came in and desolated the place, and that led to the diaspora of the Jews away from the land which they were living, Jerusalem, and Jerusalem was desolated. It was said that happened 607 BC according to history, and that led to 70 years of desolation, and that took 537 after a lot of prayer by Daniel and some other prophets. That land was restored, and Ezra came in and began to collect some of the papyrus and decided to organize the book back to them for them to read. That's what said book of Azariah, chapter 7, verse 6, to gather the book for them to read, and they will recite the Torah, and they will recite the Torah for them to let them understand the reason why they were here. And that continued. It was said they were expecting the Messiah, but they were still having doubts. But when Jesus came, they denied him. See, it happened in history. When Jesus came, they denied him, and Jesus himself preached to the Israelites. Why in the initial ground, he was preaching to the Israelites, letting them know the reason why he was sent. And he was sent to the lost sheep of Israel. When he said the lost sheep of Israel, he was not referring to all Israel, because there were some Israelites were divided into different sects. So he said those people who were astray, bring them back to light. He preached, and many of them turned their back against him. And at the end of the day, when they turned their back against him, what happened? Jesus said that they have lost their chances. They have lost their chances. So when Jesus left with disciples, and they were all, after he had gone back to God, disciples began to preach. He said they would gather themselves in the Pentecost, in a place where they were preaching, and then they were praying to God, fasting and all that, until revelation came to them, and they got some to preach the message to God, to the people of Gentiles, which the Jews denied them. They went to Gentiles, preaching to Gentiles, let them understand the reason God has sent. It's not only sent to the people of Jews, it's sent to the people of the Gentiles, for them to accept their belief, to accept Jesus as the Messiah. They began to preach to them. Some accepted and some rejected. It was said that due to their persistence, they now saw their book of, according to the book of Acts, the apostle, it was said that they saw them at Antioch, and they began to call them Christians for the first time. They were called Christians for the first time. Before that, they were called the Jews. Now, or Jewish followers, or followers of Christ. So we see from that, we see that how it all started. This is how it all started. They were Jews. That's why the Jews and the Christians and the Arabs, they were all the Semitic people. They speak a Semitic language, which are the Hebrew, the Shemites. So we see that's how they call them the Shemites. Shemites from the son, well, the three sons of, we have the three sons of Noah alayhi salam. We have the Shem and the Lam and the Japheth. And the Shemite, the Semitic, where the language of the Arabic, the Hebrew, and the Aramaic came from. So we see that we are all one in one way or the other. We all have the same Abrahamic faith. So I will come in the next episode to also further on this topic. And it's a very important topic for us, a very long and exhaustive topic, which will take us for a long time to explain details. And this is a brief to just tell you how the Jews started their mission. But we have not talked about Islam. I'll talk about Islam from the side of Ishmael later episode or subsequent episode. Thank you, brothers and sisters. May Allah bless you all.